It's 2026 and a lot has happened in the world of smart homes. And I'm going to walk you through all of it. And the first thing that we need to talk about is that the Matter smart home standard just seems to be everywhere this year. This is the universal smart home standard that lets you use smart home products with any smart home platform, whether that's Home Assistant, Apple Home, Google Home, or Amazon. Now, while all of these platforms support the Matter standard, that doesn't necessarily mean that they support all Matter device types or even the latest Matter features. For example, Google just 2 weeks ago finally added support for smart home buttons. So, given all of those caveats, does it still make sense to try to make sure that most of the smart home products you're buying supports the Matter standard? I'd say yes. After moving into a new home and buying new smart home devices myself, that is what I've continued to do, and all of the products I've bought so far have worked with all of the platforms I use day to day. Now, when you buy Matter certified products, there are a few things that you still need to know about how exactly the standard and the technology works, so you can avoid some trip-ups like I just ran into setting up my Aqara U400 smart lock. When setting it up, Aqara kept telling me in the app that in order to use Matter, I needed to buy their hub, which isn't really true. But because I know this is a Matter over Thread device, and I already have devices that act as Thread border routers in my home, I don't actually need their hub for this lock to show up in the smart home platforms that I use. Now, if what I just said sounded like I was speaking a foreign language to you, don't worry, I will break this down, and it is pretty simple to understand actually once you go through all the parts. So at a basic level, Matter devices work by simply setting them up in an app. You'll usually need to scan a QR code on the device itself to bring it into your smart home platform of choice. In this case, I did this via Apple Home, and boom, the device is there, it works, and I just saved myself $100 on an Aqara hub I didn't really need. Now, if you recall, just a few moments ago, I spewed a lot of tech jargon at you with phrases like Matter over Thread and border routers. Do you still need to know what these are? Well, in 2026, yes, I still think it's a good idea, but thankfully, this is also pretty simple. Typically, Matter devices work either over Wi-Fi or Thread. Now, you probably already know what Wi-Fi is, but what is Thread? Well, Thread is a wireless communication protocol that's similar to Wi-Fi, but it's designed specifically for devices like smart home devices to communicate with one another and is generally much better for battery life. That's why you'll see devices that use a battery for power, such as door locks, use Thread. So in general, for all types of Matter devices to work, you need a Wi-Fi router in your home and then what's called a Thread border router, which connects your Thread devices to your home network and then to the internet. The slightly confusing thing here is, unlike a Wi-Fi router that you just go out and buy, for Thread border routers, you don't usually need to go out and buy one, though you certainly can. Like if you're using Home Assistant with the Home Assistant Connect ZB-2, which you can find on our shop page by searching Home Assistant, by the way. And make sure you follow our site 6monthslater.net for all of the latest updates on smart home products that we cover. That'll be posted in the quick post feed on the homepage. Now, back to Thread border routers, you likely already have a Thread border router in your home. Products like HomePods, HomePod Minis, newer Apple TVs, Nest Hubs, the Google TV streamer, and some Amazon Echo devices all act as Thread border routers. So what happens if you're a monster like me when you want to set up a Matter device in one platform, but you want to also have it in another? Do you need to scan that QR code and set it all up again from scratch? Actually, no. Pretty much all major smart home platforms that support Matter support a Matter feature that's called multi-admin. So the way this works is you click on the device's settings in the app that you've already set the device up in. So in this case, Apple Home. In Apple Home, we'll click Turn on Pairing Mode to generate a code, while in Google Home, you'll click on Device Information, Linked Matter Apps and Services, and then Link Apps and Services to generate a pairing code. And it's different for each platform, so you'll probably want to Google how to do this for your specific one. From there, all you have to do is copy this code. I'll paste in the code, follow the steps, and I'm good to go. Now, in the future, you'll have the ability to just share all of the Matter devices that you have on one platform with another. Now, this feature is called Enhanced Multi-Admin, but it takes two to tango, and this has not yet been rolled out by major platforms like Apple Home, Google Home, or Amazon. So that's Matter, and if you found this helpful so far, make sure you hit that thumbs up button to let me know. But in 2026, there's also another major smart home standard that you should know about that's launching very soon, and that's the ALIRO smart lock standard. And the best way to understand what this standard is going to mean for smart locks is to actually show you the capabilities of this U400 smart lock, which I recently purchased. This smart lock not only has the tap to unlock capability using near field communication, otherwise known as NFC, which many smart locks have had for years now thanks to Apple's HomeKey technology. But the thing that makes this smart lock so unique is that it can automatically and precisely, I might add, unlock as you approach it from the outside, using a newer technology for smart locks called ultra-wideband. This is the same technology that powers Apple's AirTags and precision finding features. In this case, the lock uses ultra-wideband to support Apple's HomeKey Express mode, which is what this auto-unlocking feature is called in Apple land. Now, this lock is also ALIRO ready. That means it has the necessary hardware requirements for the ALIRO standard, and all it needs is a software update once the standard goes live in Q1 of 2026. Okay, so what is the ALIRO standard then, you might ask? Well, at a basic level, it brings the HomeKey experience beyond Apple to Android. Now, you'll want to really pay attention to this part because not all ALIRO certified locks will be created equal. That's because some will only use NFC, that's where you tap your phone or watch to the lock and it unlocks, plus Bluetooth Low Energy, otherwise known as Bluetooth LE, while others like the Aqara U400 will use NFC, Bluetooth LE, plus ultra-wideband. And that's the kind of smart lock you want, in my experience at least. The hands-free unlocking has worked pretty flawlessly for me over the past month, and I don't think I'd buy a lock without it going forward. And here in the US and worldwide for that matter, you can expect other locks to come onto the market once the ALIRO spec goes live in Q1 of 2026, including, I would expect, renter-friendly options as well. Other ultra-wideband smart locks were announced last year at CES, but have yet to be released and are likely waiting for the ALIRO standard to fully launch. Though the UltraLock Bolt Mission UWB lock did finally launch after CES this year, which has ultra-wideband, but it does not support Apple's HomeKey Express mode at the time of this recording. And Aqara just announced it will be working with Samsung's HomeKey equivalent feature that works with the Samsung Wallet app. And there is one other thing that you'll want to consider with these locks that I didn't even realize was a thing, frankly, until I bought my home, but that's the grade level of the lock. Now, this will differ whether you're in North America, Europe, or even Sweden, which has its own specific standard, but basically what all of these standards do is rate how physically strong a lock is, or in other terms, how much force needs to be applied to the lock before it breaks, as well as other things like how many unlocking and locking cycles the lock is rated to go through. Now, grade 3 is your standard residential grade lock here in the United States. That's what the Aqara U400 smart lock is rated as. But then there's commercial grade 2 and then grade 1, which is your top tier grade lock. And that's the one I'd likely install on a door that's like out to a busy road or high traffic area. So once ALIRO launches, what will happen for Android and iPhone users? Well, for iPhone users, not much, other than there will be more locks to potentially choose from that can now use HomeKey Express mode. However, for Android users, you'll finally be able to use Google Wallet on Android and Wear OS for these capabilities. Alright, so those are the two standards updates for the smart home. Now let's talk platforms, and in a year, there have been quite a few changes across the major smart home platforms. Google Home redesigned the underlying architecture of its Home app and rolled out Gemini for the smart home. So instead of the Google Assistant, which was strictly rules-based, Google is rolling out Gemini for the home, its LLM-backed assistant. They also launched some new AI features, advanced automations with over 20 new starters and conditions, and the new Familiar Faces feature where you can label faces that your Google cameras pick up. And I'm calling it now, that feature will ruin at least one marriage. Amazon redid their app, launched a website for their updated assistant, and of course also changed their assistant to be the newer LLM-backed version. They also have a similar Familiar Faces feature for Ring cameras and doorbells, and even have a search party feature to use the network of Ring cameras to search for lost pets, which has attracted some recent controversy. Plus, they refreshed hardware like the new Echo Dot Max and refreshed the Echo Studio. Google hasn't updated much of its smart speaker line in a while, but did announce late last year that it would have a new speaker out sometime in the first half of 2026, the new Google Home speaker, and it looks really nice. Now, Apple didn't really seem to do much in 2025 with its smart home architecture other than continuing the rollout of its newly refreshed underlying architecture for Apple Home, as well as expanding Matter support. But in 2026, we can actually expect some pretty big changes for Apple Home. They're going to launch the LLM-backed assistant, as well as we're expecting some new smart home devices, particularly a rumored smart home display or displays, and that will mark the first time Apple has entered that particular smart home product category. So those are the major updates to the big smart home platforms. And hit that like button if you found this video helpful so far, by the way, that really helps us out. So those are the big three, but what about the other smart home platforms? Well, Samsung SmartThings rolled out more Matter support, thread network unification, meaning border routers from different brands can join in a shared single thread mesh network, plus an in-home intercom feature and better advanced routine scheduling. Homey, whose company LG acquired a 80% stake in 2024, rolled out quite a few new features, including Homey's self-hosted server, so you can run Homey Pro from your own hardware, very similar to Home Assistant. They released a Matter Bridge app that allows Homey Pro to bridge its connected devices, including non-Matter devices, to platforms like Apple Home, Google Home, all via Matter. That's actually a pretty important feature and something Home Assistant doesn't actually do in its default configuration. Homey also released a new Homey Pro with double the RAM and a faster processor, and a new Homey Pro Mini, which retails for a much more affordable $199 US, and that supports Zigbee, Thread, and Matter, but omits Z-Wave and infrared. And then finally, what about Home Assistant? Well, in the past year, they've rolled out a built-in voice assistant that supports LLMs locally, a new section-based dashboard, a redesigned notification engine. They also have thread border router unification and energy management enhancements. So that's a bit of a rundown on all of these major platforms, except one. I always forget about Hubitat, though I know it is popular for being a rock-solid, locally controlled smart home hub where you can just program all of your automations. It's just that since it's not open source and it's not as customizable as Home Assistant, and its UI doesn't seem to be as nice as Homey's, I haven't found a need for one of their C8 hubs. But if you use Hubitat, let me know in the comments what you use it for and why you chose it over Home Assistant and Homey. Now, you may be wondering why you would ever need to use one of these other smart home platforms if you can just use one of the platforms from the big three, especially now that Matter is a thing. The reason why all of these hub companies and communities still exist is primarily that they support more complex customizations, a wider range of devices, they support more complex automations, and probably the most important thing is they all run locally. Out of the big three, Apple is the only one that stores your automations locally on your Home Hub, which is either an Apple TV or a HomePod. So if your internet goes down, all of your automations and local app control will still work. Amazon is still heavily reliant on its cloud servers for automations, and they actually just removed most of their local voice processing from Echo devices to support the new LLM-backed assistant and generative AI features. And that's why I don't use Amazon to do any automations. Google is a bit more of a hybrid. Complex scripts and voice commands are processed in the cloud, but Google Hubs can now process some basic commands locally. Because my partner uses Android and I either use an iPhone or Android phone as my daily driver, depending on what I'm reviewing, and we've got Nest and Google Home devices all throughout our home, that app just makes the most sense to use as the primary control interface. Though I've consistently found Google's Assistant to be slower at controlling my smart home devices compared to Amazon and Apple, so I'll often switch to using Apple since I have a few HomePods around the home. Now, you could just stop there and be totally fine, but if you're like me and you want to make sure that your automations run locally, even when the internet is down, you'll need another system to handle that. For me, that's been primarily my Home Assistant Green and Home Assistant, since it just offers a lot of customizability and the ability to tinker and some pretty advanced automations. However, I also got sent a Homey Pro Mini from Homey just to try out, which can honestly do a lot of what I've been using Home Assistant to do, and I wouldn't need to buy extra modules for it since it already has Thread and Zigbee built in. Plus, it's way easier to use out of the box and has a simpler and prettier UI, so if you just want to run automations locally, even really custom automations, unless you really need to tinker a lot with your setup via Home Assistant, for local automations and device control, going with Homey or even Apple Home is going to be easier for most people. And that's because the only real downside with Home Assistant is that it just still lacks a bit of polish. Its UI can be kind of confusing, and it can get so complex that some people are even just turning to Claude Code to help them get their Home Assistant installation exactly the way they want. And I'll link a story by Jen Toohey from The Verge on her experience with Claude Code and Home Assistant that was just fascinating to read. That's linked in the Learn More section of the blog post for this video. Now, another benefit of these hub device platforms is that they can also help bridge the gap between other platforms. So you might have a smart home device that can't work with Apple Home, for example, but you could bring that device into Home Assistant or Homey and then push it into Apple Home. Though with the Matter standard, this is thankfully becoming less necessary, but there are use cases where you still might want to do this. Now, for me, I've done this with a lot of Zigbee and Z-Wave smart home devices that you can pick up on sites like Ameridroid. Often, I found that, for example, Zigbee smart plugs are way cheaper to acquire than Matter over Wi-Fi or Matter over Thread ones. And because I have a Home Assistant Green Zigbee controller, as well as a Homey Pro Mini, it allows me to get these cheaper devices, have everything work locally, and with Homey's new Matter Bridge feature, I can push those Zigbee smart plugs to whatever platform I want for voice control. So that's the platforms and the hubs. Now let's talk about some other cool and notable devices that I'd recommend taking a look at for your home. And first, we actually need to talk about IKEA. Late last year, IKEA launched 21 new smart home products that support Matter and use Thread. And while not all of them have launched here in the US yet, the ones that are out are priced incredibly reasonably, like $6 per smart button or $8 for a water leak sensor. However, if you buy these products, you should know that some users are having some issues either getting them set up, seeing them fall out of their Thread network, or other incompatibility issues. IKEA has stated they are working on a fix, but it might be something to monitor before you go out and spend a bunch of money on these devices. Alright, so what other smart home products do I use and recommend? Well, as someone who just moved into a new space, here's what I've installed so far and in what order. And all of the products I touch on in this video can be found in the blog post linked here, as well as in the pinned comment and the description. First up was smart thermostats. Now, once you have these set up, automating your home temperature and schedules becomes much easier, and they can turn off things when they detect no one is home based on the location data of your smartphone. The ones I went with are the 4th gen Nest thermostat, mainly because they're the prettiest in my opinion with their far sight display options. I like the learning nature of the Nest thermostats, how they'll adjust your comfort temps over time based on habits that it picks up. And they're definitely going to get the spouse approval, even though the ecobee Premium is a close second and also a very nice looking thermostat. I did a review of them, and I'll leave a link to that review in our blog post for this video as well as right here. Next up was security cameras and doorbells. Here I went with Google again because I just thought the Nest doorbell looks better than the Ring ones. And once I decided on the doorbell, any other cameras that I needed to integrate into the Google Home app for viewing, I also wanted to have the familiar faces feature, as well as package detection features that came with the Nest doorbell. So I got a Nest Cam for my garage as well, which yes, I sometimes do actually get packages delivered into. The Familiar Faces feature is a paid feature, part of the Google Home Premium subscription, which I get anyways because I'm a Google One member, where you get like 10% off everything at the Google Store, plus 2 terabytes of Google Photos storage, and some other stuff for about $100 a year. The package detection feature, however, you do not need a premium subscription for, which is one of the reasons I originally got a Nest doorbell battery back when I was in an apartment. For security systems, since Google discontinued their awesome Nest one, I went with Ring, which is solid from a technical foundation and also has pretty affordable plans compared to competitors here in the US. Now, because I moved into a new home, naturally, it came with and then I bought some appliances for it, and almost all of them are smart, from my GE induction stove, which connects via Bluetooth to my GE range hood above it, and anytime you turn on the burner, it turns on the range hood, but not just that, it'll turn it on to what setting I specified for that range hood, which is high with the light to medium, which is awesome. And then to my Bosch fridge, which to be honest, I did not buy because it was smart, more because of its dual compressor and dual evaporator system, which allows it to more precisely control temperature, and it keeps fruits and vegetables fresher for longer. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel, by the way, if you want to see my review of Reddit's favorite fridge. Then for my washer and dryer, I got 2 top-of-the-line LG ones, which look slick as hell in matte black, but they will not only tell you when your loads are done, but they can communicate with one another. So when you move a load from the washer to the dryer will automatically know what type of load of laundry it is. They both have displays that pull information out of the manual and actually tell you what each mode is for, and you can customize the order that these modes appear as well. Also, their app allows you to change the chime that each one makes when it's done, which is so dumb, but also I just love that feature. I have the washer play Beethoven's 5th and the dryer play Beethoven's 9th. And of course, they'll send notifications to my watch when they're done as well. And then there's my smart garage door opener made by Chamberlain, which I did not choose because Chamberlain is basically a monopoly here in the US with over 70% market share, and they refuse to integrate with any big smart home platform after being purchased by the private equity firm Blackstone in 2021. Though the Amazon in-garage delivery part is actually pretty sweet and something I use often to lessen the chance of packages getting stolen. If you're looking to put in a new garage door opener though, I would not recommend going with Chamberlain. I'd either look at Genie or Kwikset. The lockmaker just entered the game with a new garage door opener that they plan to integrate with major smart home platforms. Another huge smart home purchase that I made was getting smart blinds in every window in my home, mainly to test over the long term actually and see if having them on every window is actually worth doing. So if you want to see that video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That'll be out later in the year. I did get a media discount from Lutron for them, but ended up still spending thousands on this project since I have 18 windows and they're all real wood blinds. Oh, and I bought these like 2 months before Lutron came out with an even more affordable version of their wood blinds in the exact same color I got, as well as it pretty much works the exact same way. So these blinds now would actually be quite a bit more affordable to get. The reason why I went with Lutron is they're rock solid performance-wise. I had one of them in my office at my apartment for years. The battery lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 years before you need to change them, and I love the natural light optimization feature where different blinds will adjust their tilt throughout the day depending on what direction that window the blind is on faces, which is really cool. All right, next up is lighting. In general, the smart lighting brand I continue to go with is Philips Hue. I started using them back in like 2014, and the reason I still use them, aside from the giant box of their bulbs and accessories I have from my apartment move out, is that their performance over time for me has just been rock solid. All of your automations run locally. Everything's controlled locally via the Philips Hue bridge. It's just a solid system. And they have so many different bulb types now and accessories. Once you're in it, it is hard to move out somewhat, though Matter has changed that a bit. Now, that's not to say there aren't other great smart lighting brands out there. I've just been using Philips so long now that there hasn't really been a reason to switch out of the Philips Hue ecosystem. And if you're more price sensitive to smart home stuff like lighting, Philips did just come out with a new line of bulbs called Essential Hue bulbs, which is even more affordable. I'll leave a link to all the Philips Hue products as well as other smart lights in the smart lights section of our blog post for this video, linked in the description and pinned comment. Like the new Festiva Globe outdoor string lights, which allow you to change the pattern of lights so you can do like red and green for Christmas, orange and purple for Halloween, etc. I think those are really cool. And then if you already have light fixtures or lamps that can't work with smart bulbs, there are a few things that you can do, but in general, I do always recommend going the smart bulb route. That's because smart bulbs are just superior in being able to control the dimness, color temperature, as well as state remotely or via something like this Philips Hue Tap Smart Switch. For situations like this new light I got from Gantry, which is so cool, but so frustrating because it's not compatible with smart bulbs because of its integrated dimmer switch. What I did with that one is I put it on a Philips Hue smart plug. Now these are really expensive for smart plugs, but the reason to go for one if you're in the Hue ecosystem is that it will allow you to say whether or not you want that light to be on or off in your various scenes. And the performance, by the way, is fantastic. It's wicked fast. And smart plugs in general are a great way to control any non-smart device in your home, like a fan, decorative lights, a Christmas tree, stuff like that. And I'll leave a link to a few I'd recommend checking out in our blog post. Another option for lighting control is to get a smart light switch. I've seen ones from Lutron come highly recommended, but there are others that you can get as well that I'll link below in our blog post. Now, in general, the only other downside to smart lights that I haven't quite found a solution for is when you do make all of the bulbs smart, but you still got the physical light switch on the wall. And now, Philips does have a software feature that you can set for the bulbs where if someone flicks the light switch off and then turns it back on, the bulbs will just return to whatever state they were in when they were turned off. But that's still kind of a band-aid solution. Philips did make a product that you can install behind the physical switch that would always keep the circuit on, but it discontinued that product. In general, I think there are three basic options you have. Number one is you can install a plastic toggle switch that covers your physical switch so someone visiting isn't going to turn off your smart lights. But these kind of look a bit tacky in my opinion. A better option is either going with a solution like Lutron's Aura Smart Bulb Dimmer Switch, which goes on over the physical toggle switch, always keeping that switch in the on position, or replacing just all of the switches. Or replace the switch entirely with a smart switch that has a smart bulb mode. Lutron makes some that are quite popular, as well as Zeus, Eve, and TP-Link, some of which use Matter over Thread and Matter over Wi-Fi. The options I'd recommend checking out are in the blog post for this video under the Smart Switch section. So that's all the updates I have for the smart home this year. Let me know if there's something that you found that you're excited about to try in your smart home down in the comments. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel as well as following our site, 6monthslater.net. That's where I'll post updates to the smart home gear that we cover in the quick post feed, and you can also subscribe to that via RSS as well. And for all of the products I talked about in this video, you can learn more about them in our blog post, plus see links to multiple retailers, live prices on Amazon, and see where else we've covered them by clicking the eye icon in the top right corner of the product card. And to see more smart home videos that I've done, you can click here to get to those, or click here for more tech product reviews in general. For 6 months later, I'm Josh Tedder. Thanks for watching.